So the Zenless Zone 0 patch 2.0 livestream just ended, and in it they went over a lot of the cool new things that we can expect when the update arrives on the 5th of June. Now whether you missed it or you don't have time to rewatch it, I'll give you a quick rundown on everything that you missed. First things first though, the redemption code is ZZZANNIVERSARY, so make sure you redeem this quickly as it only lasts for a day. But there are also a few Twitter events where you could win 10 master tapes. As usual, all you have to do is follow the Twitter account and then quote the tweet along with the corresponding hashtags, which you can find in the description down below. There is also another Twitter event though for a PlayStation 5 awesome character badges, so make sure that you also try and participate in that one too. But otherwise, there's also an in-game login event right now where you can earn a total of 480 polychrome after logging in across the various days. And then the thing that I'm sure is most on everyone's mind is the anniversary rewards. So the anniversary rewards will come in the form of 30 pulls in total, 1,600 polychromes from the mail, and then various login events for another 20 pulls. But we are also getting a standard S-rank agent selector, which means that you get to pick any of the standard S-rank agents for free. But what is an agent without their engine? And so we are also, on top of getting a free S-rank standard character, we are getting the choice to get a free S-rank signature engine as well from the standard engines. And then of course, to celebrate going to the new area of Waifu Peninsula or Waifu Peninsula, we are also getting a new outfit for Belle and Weiss. And for those of you who have Ellen Jo, she is going to be getting an upgrade in this patch, and if for some reason you haven't decided to build her yet already, there will be an option to just upgrade her instantly with a single click of a button. And in a nutshell, that is what we got for the anniversary rewards. Now, quick disclaimer, I will say, this video might sound a bit rushed, and that's because I am in a bit of a rush because I need to be on a plane in like a couple of hours from right now. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the main content of patch 2.0. Of course, we are going to the new area of Waifu Peninsula, which means that there are going to be some Waifuian Peninsulan versions of stuff. For example, instead of the Howl's newsstand, there is instead going to be stuff like a fortune-telling stand. And then of course, we can expect a lot of shilling for Yixuan with character demos, character teasers, trailers, and what have you. But we are also still getting the return of agent EPs again for both Yixuan and Fufu. Not only that though, I know some people were a bit sad about the loss of an agent story in the last patch, but Fufu will be getting her own agent story in the second half of the patch. And there's a lot to look forward to in this patch because this is going to be the new exploration style where instead of having to go to the HDD and going into a holo, it's now going to be seamlessly coordinated between the actual exploration and combat itself within the holos. The best way I can describe it is think of the one Into the Pale Wasteland event where we went into the Melanoe holo. Also, very interesting was in the trailer for patch 2.0, we did get a glimpse of ORPHEUS' 3D model, which I'll be honest, was not what I was expecting her to look like based on what we saw in the Season 2 trailer. And I'll be honest, I don't know how to feel about this like change up of ORPHEUS from the girl boss serious attitude to just being like a nice cute little girl. Let me know what you guys think though. But more importantly though, are the 3 new agents, Yixuan, Pan Yinhu, and Fufu. Starting things off with Yixuan, she is the augmented ink element, which is basically just fancy words to say that she is an ether character. But she is also the rupture class, which is going to be a brand new class moving forward. But right now she is still the only one, but trust me, I'm sure there will be many more to come in the future. The key thing about this rupture class is that they have the sheer force stat, which allows them to deal damage that ignores enemy defenses. So essentially it's like a form of true damage. Yixuan increases her sheer force by increasing her max HP. So sort of like a bruiser type of character. Now, Yixuan uses adrenaline to augment her attacks, and then this adrenaline is converted into technique points, which you can see in the gauge underneath her health bar. When that gauge is full, she can use her ultimate to gain an auric ink point, which she can then spend to use special attacks. But how does the adrenaline system work? Well, firstly, an example of how you can use the adrenaline is by using her held basic attack, which essentially makes a little Nicole black hole which sucks in all the enemies and deals a bunch of damage. And to generate adrenaline, you can do things like performing perfect dodges, which by the way, her regular EX does allow you to trigger a dodge kinda like Evelyn's. And if you have enough adrenaline, you can also charge up her EX special, which has Yixuan pose up getting ready to counter an incoming attack. The nice thing though is that she will automatically block the incoming attack, so there's no timing necessary for this parry. She can then follow up that parry with another special attack. Now, when her gauge of technique points are filled from consuming adrenaline, she can then use her ultimate to deal damage and gain that auric ink point. However, this version of the ultimate does not consume decibels if you have the gauge full. Instead, you can use her ultimate a second time with the decibels to fire off a second, slightly different ultimate attack. That's right, Yixuan essentially has 2 ultimate attacks. Next up though is Pan Yinhu, the physical defender. For his EX special, he generates 3 stacks of break force, which let him unleash his attack, the Touch of Death, which I can only assume is him going skadoosh. Now the EX also triggers a quick assist to another agent, which is very useful because when an agent switches in from this quick assist, they gain a sheer force buff. Not only that though, but when there are Rupture or Yunhui Summit agents in the team, Touch of Death also inflicts a debuff on the enemy that lets all other agents deal additional damage. And his ultimate is now our second form of sustain in the game because not only does it do damage, but it also heals the squad while applying a regen effect on top of that too. And last but certainly not least is Fufu, the fire stunner. In combat, she has her popcorn pot on the field, which stays on the field even if Fufu herself isn't, so it's kind of like Lucy's boars. Both of their attacks will accumulate might and momentum. The pot can consume momentum to deal fire damage with its attacks, while also generating might. Fufu's chain attack increases the crit damage and the damage of chain attacks, as well as ultimates for the entire team. So, for those of you wondering, will she power creep lighter? Not really, they are 2 completely separate niches. Fufu is a lot more of a general buffer for the entire team, as opposed to a specific element of fire and ice and extending timers and stuff like that. Fufu's dash attack lets her spin around like a Beyblade though, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But during the spin, Fufu will consume momentum when hitting an enemy, and if she has enough might, after dealing enough damage, she will immediately throw out a chain attack, which again gives you those team-wide buffs. But after then switching out to a different character, Fufu will keep on spinning and hitting the enemy while you are on a different character though, so she can continue dishing out extra damage. But aside from the 3 agents from Yunhui Summit, there is of course the faction Bangbu, the Bellion. Belion? It's the statue thing. Now, why did I say that Yixuan is probably going to be the start of a brand new set of Rupture classes and not just a one-time thing? Well, that is because Astra, Collida, Lucy, and Pulchra will all have their team abilities adjusted so that their team buffs can now be activated when there is a Rupture agent on the squad. This could be for Yixuan, it could be for many others down the line. Speaking of Astra though, the banners are of course going to be Yixuan and Pan Yinhu on the first banner with Fufu on the second banner. However, the reruns for the patch are actually kinda crazy in terms of good supports. We have Astra rerunning on the first half with Caesar rerunning on the second half, both of which are incredibly great supports. And I know we mentioned a skin for Bell and Weiss, but they are not the only ones because we will also be getting a skin for Yixuan as well. A nice sleek black outfit with stockings with a very specific stripe up the back of the legs. But now you might be wondering, well, how do we build Yixuan and Fufu? Well, you can do that with the brand new disc sets. The Yunhui Tails, which is made for Yixuan, which not only increases HP by 10%, but also increases your crit rate by up to 12%, while also increasing your sheer damage by 10%, which again is something that the Rupture class will be wanting to do. And then as for the other disc set, the King of the Summit, this is great not just for Fufu, but honestly, stunners in general. Lighter. Because the 2-piece effect increases the days of attacks by 6%, which is great, but then the 4-piece set increases the crit damage of the entire team by 15%, and it'll increase the crit damage by another 15% if the wearer has 50% crit rate or more. A great disc set, not just for Fufu, but really most stunners as well. Who wouldn't want to turn down 30% free crit damage for the entire team? But of course, with the new Rupture class, that means we also need some new Rupture class engines. But don't worry, we have you covered because there are several new engines, one of which is going to be a Battle Pass engine, but there are going to be 3 engines that are also being added, one of which is a B rank engine, while another one of the A rank engines will be craftable over at the Gadget Store. Next up though, we move on to the events, of which there are a lot. So first up, there is the As Time Passes Decade of Shriban Temple, which is essentially going to be like a management simulator minigame where you put Bangboos to work as they run the Shriban Temple. Next up is the Gravitational Attraction event, where you can finally go into Gravity Cinema and watch some movies with some of your agents. It does seem a bit intimate because there's some special cutscenes and everything as well. Then we have Soul of Steel Golden Bond, where EOS has decided it has had enough and it is getting in the damn mech and fighting on hordes of enemies. Finally, we have the Bangboo combat that we have been wanting for how long? Next up is the Holographic Onslaught Arena, which is the one sort of rerun event. It's essentially the trial battles that we've seen many times before over in the VR system. And then to get familiarized with the new region, we have the Phalum Heights Sightseeing Guide. Next is the Hollow Zero Phantom Paths event, which is going to be the introduction of a new Lost Void mode with some slight differences. Aside from the new bosses, you will now also be able to have some new gear and even take multiple different gear from several agents all at once. Next are the Golden Proxy Awards, where Fairy and Eos will have a little ceremony to see what some of your favorite moments from the game are in a little award show that they host. And then of course, what is a patch without double drops? Well, actually, there are no double drops to this patch though, to be fair. Instead, we are getting triple drops for routine cleanups and then the combat stages. And then the last in-game event is the Operation Yum event, which might sound weird, but that is because it is a tie-in for an actual collab happening in the real world with popular food establishments around the world. Shout out, by the way, to the Magical Girl transformation for Bernice and Anby. Some other outside of game events though are the pre-register event, which we can all take part in, and depending on how many users pre-register for the new patch, we can earn some various rewards. And then if you have not been playing Zenless Zone Zero for a while, but now you're considering getting back into it, the Return to Redo event is coming back for 2.0. And then last but not least, there are some quality of life stuff. The biggest quality of life adjustments were of course the addition of the new map mode. So now you no longer have to scroll through the little wheel, but you have an actual grid where you can instantly select where you want to go. And for those of you that are hurting on storage space, especially on PC, they are now implementing the change where you're able to remove or delete parts of the game that are no longer necessary. For example, older story stages. Otherwise though, that is going to be it for the 2.0 patch, and also again remember the anniversary patch. I'll be honest, my thoughts on the patch were that it was pretty standard, you know. If you ignore all the freebies and giveaways from the anniversary stuff, it does seem like a regular old patch as per usual. I do like the fact that at least now there are a lot of new events, some exciting events, for example that Bang Boo mech combat, and also that we are getting an agent story in this patch. So that means that unlike patch 1.7 that we've just had now, it feels like there's going to be something new to do every week. And I will say, I am quite pleasantly surprised about the anniversary rewards. I was very content and very happy once I saw the 30 pulls and the free S-rank agent. But then I was completely surprised when they threw in the engine as well. But otherwise, I'm curious to know what you guys think of the upcoming patch 2.0 though. Let me know down in the comments. And once again, I do apologize if this does feel a little bit rushed because, well, I was in a bit of a rush. So until next time though, bye bye.